You stupid bitch. Yeah, you're a stupid bitch. You stupid bitch. Go.
Welcome to this week's episode of Stupid Bitches Say What, the Aussie podcast about everything and nothing, but always with wine, and your hosts, the fabulous Sean Hipkins and the equally fabulous Skye Collett.
Oh, I missed a T on that end of collet there, I see.
Dude, you're terrible with spelling my surname.
This week it's back in time. And not only is it back in time, it's also episode 69.
Oh,
Woohoo!
60. Oh my God, I didn't even realize. 69.
Dinner for two.
Fancy dinner for two.
And this episode, we are discussing famous activists from way back yonder, please. Listen in while I discuss the suffragette movement, the women's activist movement that fought for the right for women to vote in public elections, while Skye shares her research into activist group, the Jane Collective, a group of feminists and medical experts who refused to stand by when women's reproductive rights and freedoms were dictated and regulated by church, boo, government, boo, and men, boo, who just thought they knew better. So hold on to your headsets, folks, as we're about to talk about. So hold on to your headsets, folks, as we talk about the inspiring woke people from back in the day. Isn't it funny how, like, back then too, those people would have been considered woke in their time?
I know,
And yet
right?
everyone is now like, oh my God, they were trailblazers, the way forward, yeah, human rights. But you do anything now to stand up for fucking minority groups and you're like, go woke, go broke,
Yeah.
bye.
I
Anyway,
know.
what are you drinking, Skye?
Oh, what am I drinking? Well, I'm sorry to make you jealous. I just wanted to have a little bit of a merch show. Look at this. Instead of drinking from my stupid bitch wine glass, because I only have 2 left because I've smashed so many of them. And I drink out of them all the time. I thought I'd just drink out of the mug tonight.
Why
See how
not?
fabulous they are? They're just
They
the
are
best.
gorge. They're my favorite piece. And, you know, that's how we do market them. Have a sneaky wine in your stupid bitches say what mug.
Exactly. So sorry if you're just listening. You need to watch our YouTube so you can actually see the picture, or better yet, buy them.
Yeah.
But
Hashtag support local artists.
Yeah, buy our merch. Hashtag buy our merch. Full disclosure, I've already had a glass of wine and I'm about to pour another one. So I'm drinking Turua Bay Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc 2022 from New Zealand. And listeners, you'd love to hear that I've actually catalogued all the wines. They're all ready to go. The only reason I haven't sent them to you, Sean Bino, is because the formatting, you know how Google Sheets can be a little bit weird with the formatting, like trying to get it to work because you're just so used to Excel. So I haven't fully formatted it, so it's not in the best format, but it's definitely there.
Perfect.
Logged, ready to
go. And what are we going to do with it? Post it on our socials?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Or certainly do our favorite drinks of the season, maybe.
Yeah. Do we have any commentary that goes with it?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, I did.
Love that. That's going to be the cream of the crop.
You'll be happy to know that there's multiple times that we forget to say the year, like lots.
I'm drinking Savvy Bay.
Sometimes even the name of the alcohol is missed entirely.
Fantastic. That's obviously the double recording.
And not as many double ups as I thought there would be.
Oh, dude. Well, there's probably a lot of the same brand names, but different fucking varieties.
Yes. I think you'd be very interested to see the results of what
I'm looking forward to seeing the commentary as well. Well done.
And what are you drinking, please, sober Sean Bino?
So sober is right. It's the last weekend of dry July, thank fuck. Take the shackles off my hands so I can drink.
I think it's been harder on me than it has been on him.
I am drinking... I'll be having 2 varieties of 0% beer tonight in this episode. The first one is a Heineken 0.0.
Whilst I get tanked.
Whilst Skye gets tanked. And this is in a can, which I haven't had before, but we bought them for Vinny for last weekend. And he said they're better in the can than they are the bottle. So let's give that a go.
I did have a sip of that on Saturday night, actually.
Oh, yeah. It's got the beer taste, but then the watery taste at the end. I have to say, look, all joking aside, 0% alcohol beer has been a bit of a lifesaver during this month of dryness. Even having 4 of them on a Saturday night while watching a movie, you still feel like you're actually having a beer.
Yeah, but you don't get the fucking buzz.
You don't get the fucking buzz. You did right, and that's what sucks. But it's good. Look, as non-alcoholic stuff goes, I think beer is probably the safest option.
Look, and I'm sure we're probably going to touch on it in How's Your Week Been? But you do need to let people know that you did drink on Saturday night.
Well, I did drink last Saturday night, but it was all above board. It was planned from pre-dry July, and I did have to spend $25 through the Dry July Foundation on a golden ticket, which allowed me the opportunity to just have a couple.
Just a couple.
I think I had about maybe 16 beers.
How many shots did you have?
I think there was about 3 shots, one in a gun. Thank you, Skye. And that video, I've got to post that video of you.
One shot into your mouth via a gun. Shotgun, people, not an actual weapon.
No, we're not that hick. But yeah, how has your week been?
My week has been great. I want to talk about a little story. I was trying to decide which one I was going to use for which How's Your Week Been in these 2 double episodes. But I'm going to start with ear hygiene, cleaning your ears.
Oh,
what do you do? Are you one of those people who shoves the stick right in there and gets in there and does it every day?
No, Vinny is like that. And actually, I have a story about that. No, I'm not one of those people. I will generally, if I feel, sometimes I'll stick a finger in there and I think, ooh, and then I'll get the cotton bud out. But I would say once every 2 to 3 weeks, I'd give them a clean. But I don't pull out like potatoes and shit like that. I'm like, whoa. That's disgusting.
Well, I used to work with a chick who used to do it every day religiously, and she almost said like it was part of her routine, that she almost got excited about doing it, like, and seeing what she'd get out. Like, she loved it that much. And I think there's lots of people out there that do that, but I'm a little bit like you. I probably wouldn't even say every couple of weeks. I'd probably just say whenever I feel something in there, or a finger goes in there and I'm like, oh, that's a bit gross in there. I better go give it a bit of a clean.
Something came out on my nail.
You know how they say that you shouldn't really shove those cotton tips in there anyway, because you're just pushing it further, which totally makes sense because it's a small cavity. You know, you can't really get around in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, as you know, I wear earplugs to bed because I live on a busy road and my husband snores really loudly. So I've been wearing these earplugs for, oh God, I've done it randomly throughout my life, like on camping trips and things like that. But since we moved in here, I got used to the busy road after a bit of time. But then the first few times I didn't use the earplugs, Tyler's snoring just kept me awake anyway. So I've just wear earplugs every night, right?
It's a thing.
And then I've thought to myself over the last month or so, I'm not really giving my ears a chance to clean out. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm pushing these earplugs into my ears every night and going to sleep. So I went and got some ear cleaner the other week from the chemist. And it's just like one of those long sprays, and you put it in there and then you hold your head like on the side and you sort of tap it. And then you sort of pour it out and skunk's supposed to come out. So I've done that a couple of times, and there's no real things that are coming out from the application of this
candy
stuff
wrappers
to get into ears. Except for today. Today, I was brushing my hair, I was putting a pair of earrings on, and I sort of tilted my head to the side, and I felt something sort of like loose in my ear. And then as I was staring at myself in the mirror because I was brushing my hair and putting my earrings on, I visibly saw something fall from this ear, and I went, what the fuck was that? And I felt it fall. Anyway, so it fell into my hair. And I went through my hair and I thought, what the fuck is that? You know what I thought it was? I thought it was a fly. Do you know how sometimes people say that they get like flies or spiders or bugs caught in their ears and caught in the earwax and stuff? Anyway, I thought that's what it was. And then I found it in my hair, and it was this giant chunk of earwax. And I actually sent photos to you to show you how gross it was. But I ran straight into Tyler in the bedroom. I was like, do you want to see something really gross? And he's like, no, not really, because he knows I can be really gross sometimes. And I was like, look at this. And he's like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, that just came out of my ear, man. And then the next thing out of my mouth was, I have to take a picture and send it to Vino.
Did you feel any relief or any or anything?
Look, I did. It wasn't like a pop or anything like that, but I certainly I was sort of putting my head on the side because I was putting earrings in, and I just felt something happen, and then I could feel it sort of roll out of my ear. I felt some sort of movement. And so I don't know if it's because it's built up so much from the earplugs or because of the ointment stuff that I've been putting in there.
Collected it together or some shit.
And it's managed to pull it out, but it was giant sized. That shit's been building for many, many moons.
It's coming right for us. I have had it where I've leant down without any ear cleaning stuff and I felt a little ball of wax come out.
Do you think that's normal, or should people actually be cleaning their ears more regularly?
Look, I think there's some people that probably need to. Remember you look into someone's ear next to you on the bus, you're like, Jesus, they might have it overreactive. But I think in general, your ears would clean themselves somehow
I think so. And some people have really hairy inner ears too, don't they? I don't believe that I do unless you've been looking down my ear lately and you can tell me if I've got lots of hairs, but certainly I've had no complaints.
From previous encounters.
But I have seen some people with pretty hairy inner ears.
Old men.
Yeah.
Older men too. Yeah, I've definitely seen it. A few doctors seem to have it, notably. Just general.
They should know better, right? If they're not concerned.
Hygiene.
They don't need to be concerned about earwax hygiene.
What I have wanted to do, though, you know that candle thing where they burn the candle, it sucks shit up? That would be good.
Well, I nearly brought that instead, but I thought, chemicals are going to be way better to break it up than fucking the candle. And
also, it's a bit worrying too if she gets stuck or. But Vinny is one of those people that will pretty much clean his ear. Probably not every day, but he used to definitely do it every day, clean his ears out, and he'd love the sensation of it. And I sent him an article. I didn't read it, which is a bummer because it would have been perfect, about scientists or researchers sort of confirming that some people do have a G-spot basically in their ear.
No way.
And that's, why they're just oh yeah, this is great. Obviously not a proper G-spot, but maybe something that's a bit sensitive or a nerve that loves a little tickle.
Well, like I said, this chick that I work with, it was a thing that she had to do. She looked forward to it in the morning as part of her routine. When you brush your teeth and stuff and you're getting ready in the morning, she looked forward to it. Then she was like, when I get a big chunk out, I'm like, yeah, she loved it. And I was I can't say I've ever felt that level of joy.
Yeah, no, that's Vinny for sure. That is definitely him.
But I was certainly looking at it in my hand going, how fucking long has that been in there?
You're pretty proud of that. It's yeah.
Yeah. There's 3 pictures if anyone wants to hit us up. I'm happily send them to
Comment on our socials and we'll DM them to you.
So how's your week been, Stupid Bitch?
The week has been good. I did want to talk to you about our trip to Kenilworth recently as part of our Dry July escapades.
Last week, didn't we? Last time, or is it just because we've had a conversation about it?
Yeah, because we went to Kenilworth, I think the day after our last recording.
Oh, you talked about going. I think I get so confused between what we cover in the podcast and what our normal
what we talk in the general yeah, exactly. So part of our coping mechanism throughout Dry July is booking things in that don't involve alcohol on the weekend and making sure we have something to do, so we're not just sitting there twiddling our thumbs looking at the wine rack going, come to mama.
Should we just open one bottle? Just one.
Just the one.
Nobody
just
has to know.
Yeah. I know Vinny said that actually. Imagine if we were just here on a Friday just getting pissed anyway and just saying everyone, yeah, fresh.
At least you have the podcast as a record. See, people, he's not drinking anything except for 0 alcohol beer.
But yeah,
that's
we went
your
up.
Proof.
Exactly. Thank you. We went up to, we had planned a day trip up to Kenilworth via Fig Tree Walk, which was meant to be a 45-minute walk, hike, a 2-hour drive north from Brisbane. So in the Imbil State Forest in Mullaney on the Sunshine Coast it was. So we had to leave nice and early so we could get there by 11 o'clock, do the walk, and then drive up to Kenilworth Bakery before they closed at 1 o'clock so we could collect our 1 kilogram jam and cream donut that we'd had pre-ordered.
Listeners, I was invited on this hike also, but I was
were.
also too hungover to go.
Look, you would have been fucking spitting chips after what I have to tell you. So, and we also wanted to try out their other baked goods. It's a famous bakery up in Kenilworth. They do 800 kilogram donuts that are as big as your face, a 1 kilo jam and cream one. Savory selection. It's delish. Anyway, even though we left at 9 a.m., the traffic screwed us over by adding another 30 minutes to the drive.
It's such a hike to go up there, isn't it?
Oh, fuck it. It's so annoying, especially leaving at 9. We thought we'll beat all that shit. So we get to the walk at 11:30. We're half an hour behind.
That's a terrible time to leave, by the way.
On a Saturday.
You've got to leave it everyone's going up there for like weekends away and the beach.
They should go on Friday night. So anyway, we get to the walk at 11:30. We think, okay, we'll just be really quick. It's a 45-minute walk. We can gay walk around it and get that knocked over in 30 minutes. It'll be fine. We'll shove some people around if we need to. And we'll still have enough time to get to the bakery before it closes, collect our donut and eat some pie. Anyway, we get there and we park. There was no parking. And then we park, so we had to park across the road, walk across. We're like, where the fuck is this
This is what happens when you don't drink, people.
Life sucks. We're like, where the fuck is the walk? Because there's all these other walks around as part of this fucking rainforest or whatever the fuck it was. And
whatever the fuck it was.
But they were like 2-hour hikes and, had a bit of a degree of difficulty where you'd have to jump across a stream and shit like that.
Was there
we
heaps
didn't have
of fit
2
people?
hours.
Was there heaps of people like in active wear?
A lot of families, more families and shit. So we couldn't risk doing the 2-hour walk and miss the bakery. So we fucking we're looking on the sign. We find where it is. We just don't know how to get there. We had to go across the bridge from where we were and start the walk. So we get there. We're like, great. We start walking around Fig Tree Walk. We see a group of old people going to the left. So we took the right. So we didn't have to get stuck behind them. We had to do this in half an hour. We walk around, we see this giant fig tree that's hollowed out. We get in there, get a photo each, start walking around, not really stopping to smell the flowers and everything, but not, just running through it. And
then on a mission to donuts.
Exactly. And then about literally 7 minutes after we started, we meet up with the old people that we're walking past. And we're like, what the fuck? How have we already caught up to them? We came out, the walk was 10 minutes and 52 seconds. The thing they said was 45 minutes. We thought we'd missed a turn off. We did not miss a turn off. And we were standing there trying to think, where the fuck do we go now? We saw the old people coming out from where we walked in. So we drove 2.5 hours for a 10-minute hike to then just go and get a donut. So it was a 4.5 hour total return trip drive for a donut and 15-minute walk. It was well worth it.
But what about the scenery? Was it beautiful?
It was pretty. And I mean, like when you're driving through Mullaney, Vinny was able to get a nice few fucking photos and looks at views and shit, but not Mama. She was driving and fucking pissed.
So did Vinny drive back or did you drive back as well?
No, I drove back. Vinny's, I call him the passenger princess.
That's me. I'm
the passenger princess. Yeah, Vinny likes to sit while I drive. I'm like, well, I control the music.
Yeah, that's so true. That's us too.
All right. The Suffragettes.
Go you.
Have you heard of them before?
Yes, I have, but I was intrigued. So I purposely didn't research anything because I was like, I know that it was like a women's feminist movement, right? That's all I know.
So have you seen Mary Poppins?
Yes.
That's how I first heard of the Suffragettes and Mary Poppins. The mother, Mrs. Banks, was on the crusade of the Sister Suffragette.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, she has a song at the very beginning. And the husband's quite supportive of it, which was good. We're clearly soldiers in petticoats, dauntless crusaders for women's votes. That? And,
vaguely.
Yeah. What's the end part goes and cast off the shackles of yesterday, shoulder to shoulder into the fray. Our daughters will adore us, and they'll sing in joyful chorus. Well
Why
done,
am I not surprised?
Sister Suffragette.
That you know all the words to Mary Poppins.
I love that song and I love the mother. And I was totes a Mary Poppins fan, believe it or not.
I haven't seen it since I was young.
Yeah, same. It's probably one that, you'd get a bit bored with, I think, if we watched it these days.
Yeah, totes.
But that's how I heard about it. And I remember obviously knowing it was something to do with women something, but didn't actually realize the whole fucking thing behind it. So it was quite an interesting bit of research getting into it. And there's a really cool bitch in it that sort of was the drive behind the suffragettes. So firstly, I'll just explain that suffrage means the right to vote in political elections. Suffrage. The suffragettes were part of the Votes for Women campaign that had long fought for the right of women to vote in the UK. They used art, debate, propaganda, and attack on property, including window smashing and arson, to fight for female suffrage.
How crazy is it to think that women weren't allowed to vote? Like,
yeah, I know.
It's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and the reasons why too. So during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, men in the UK had the right to vote, but women did not. Many people, including women, many people, including women, didn't believe that women should be able to vote. One of which was Queen Victoria, who called the fight for women's rights a mad, wicked folly, despite being a powerful woman herself. So here's those woke accusers from back then. As we know, this type of repression still exists strongly today. Women and same pay, the shameful fact that Indigenous people of Australia were only given the right to vote in 1962,
gross.
and the option to enrol and vote in federal elections. It wasn't until 1984 that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were finally treated like other voters / humans and were actually required to enrol and vote in elections. It was a choice thing before then.
And they're still not named in the Constitution.
Yeah, which is even fucking more despicable. It is a sad fact that throughout history and today of the equalities people are still having to fight for, and the repressors still standing up saying, no, that's mine. I want it. You can't have it. It'll affect me somehow. I'm not sure, but no, it's mine. So I want to get that out
somehow I'm
there.
not sure.
Yeah.
But I don't like it because I have it and you don't.
The sun will rise tomorrow. Yes, you're right, but no. So I just wanted to state that before we go on. We are aware that there's still some bad shit happening. So who started the suffragette movement, please? Her name was Emmeline Pankhurst, Emmeline Pankhurst. Her daughters Christabel, Sylvia, and Adela Pankhurst, and a small group of women based in Manchester, founded the Women's Social and Political Union, WSPU, in 1903. Emmeline Pankhurst was born on the 15th of July, 1858, and passed on the 14th of June, 1928.
She's old.
She very old. Was a political activist who was a British political activist who organised the UK suffragette movement and helped women win the right to vote. In 1999, Time named her one of the 100 most important people of the 20th century, stating that she shaped an idea of objects for our time and shook society into a new pattern from which there could be no going back. Isn't that funny? She shook society by getting women the right to vote. She was widely criticised for her militant tactics, and historians disagree about their effectiveness, but her work is recognised as a crucial element in achieving women's suffrage in the United Kingdom. So she was born to politically active parents. Pankhurst was introduced at the age of 14 to the women's suffrage movement. She founded and became involved in the Women's Franchise League. Oh, shit. Which advocated suffrage for both married and unmarried women. When that organisation broke apart, she tried to join the left-leaning Independent Labour Party through her friendship with socialist Keir Hardie, but was initially refused membership by the local branch because
she's a woman.
She a lady. The WSP aimed to wake up the nation, air quotes.
I love that you said the non-married and the married. It was like the married women were of a higher standard than the non-married women. It's like...
Yeah, I know. Wait till there's a bit about that too that I'll get to it here. It's crazy. The WSPU aimed to wake up the nation, quotes, to the cause of women's suffrage through deeds, not words. And this was the beginning of the suffragette movement as we know it.
I wonder if that's where the whole woke thing comes from, though, like wake up. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact
Yeah,
that
so I think that's why they call people woke, that like I'm awake to all these things, but they say, oh, you're woke. They use it as a negative. I know, go woke, go broke.
I am broke.
And also
and
woke.
woke.
So fuck yeah. The group identified as independent from and often in opposition to political parties. It became known for physical confrontations. I love that too. Its members smashed windows and assaulted police officers. Pankhurst, her daughters, and other WSPU activists received repeated prison sentences, where they staged hunger strikes to secure better conditions and were often force-fed. As Pankhurst's eldest daughter, Christabel, took leadership of the WSPU, antagonism between the group and the government grew. Eventually, the group adopted arson as a tactic, and more moderate organisations spoke out against the Pankhurst family. In 1913, several prominent individuals left the WSPU, among them Pankhurst's youngest daughters, Adela and Sylvia. So Emmeline was not happy with this. In fact, she was so furious that she gave Adela a ticket, £20, and a letter of introduction to a suffrage movement in Australia for women, and firmly insisted that she emigrate. Adela complied, and the family rift was never healed. The other daughter, Sylvia, went on to become a socialist. However, with the beginning of the First World War, Emmeline and Christabel called an immediate halt to militant terrorism in support of the British government's stand against the German peril, as they called it. Emmeline organised and led a massive procession called the Women's Right to Serve demonstration to illustrate women's contribution to the war effort. Emmeline and Christabel urged women to aid industrial production and encouraged young men to fight, becoming prominent figures in the White Feather movement. What is the White Feather movement, I hear you ask?
I do. I am asking. Yeah.
Excellent. Because, I had no idea. So I Googled this. With the outbreak of the First World War, the Order of the White Feather was founded as a propaganda campaign to shame men into signing up to join the fight, thus associating the White Feather with cowardice and dereliction of duty. It's pretty yucky, isn't it?
They really like to,
bully.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, there's some people out there that just shouldn't be in wars.
No, and
guys,
I hate the whole conscription thing. I think it's just so despicable and disgusting. But it's part of our history, right? But I hate the whole birthday drawn out of it.
For Vietnam and that, yeah.
Oh, so horrible.
So in 1918, the Representation of the People Act granted votes to men over the age of 21 and women over the age of 30. And this discrepancy was intended to ensure that men did not become the minority voters as a consequence of the huge number of deaths suffered during the First World War. Emmeline transformed the WSPU machinery into the Women's Party, which was dedicated to promoting women's equality in public life. In her later years, she became concerned with what she perceived as the menace posed by Bolshevism. And what is Bolshevism?
Please explain.
Well, get ready for it, because this is just going to probably not clear anything up.
I love that.
Bolshevism, derived from Bolshevik, is a revolutionary socialist current of Soviet Leninist and later Marxist-Leninist political thought and political regime associated with the formation of a rigidly centralized, cohesive and disciplined party of social revolution focused on overthrowing the existing capitalist state, seizing power and establishing the dictatorship of the proletariat.
Do you have a dummies version of that?
No, and that was all one sentence. So now we've cleared that up.
I feel dumber for having heard that.
I know. I read it.
Because I have no idea what any of that means.
What does that mean? What does that actually mean? So she became concerned with what she perceived as the menace posed by Bolshevism and joined the Conservative Party. She was selected as a conservative.
She flits around a little bit, doesn't she?
She was an activist, that's for damn sure. She was selected as a Conservative candidate for Whitechapel and St. George's in 1927. She died on the 14th of June 1928, only weeks before the Conservative government's Representation of the People, Equal Franchise Act 1928 extended the vote to all women over 21 years of age on the 2nd of July, 1928.
Wowzers.
She was commemorated 2 years later with a statue in Victoria Tower Gardens next to the House of Parliament, which I want to see stat.
Totes.
So back to the suffragettes. That's Emmeline's story. In the late 19th...
Vale Emmeline.
Vale Emmeline. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, many women started to campaign for women's rights, the focus of their attention being the right to vote. They didn't care about equal pay back then. They're like, little by little. This became known as the suffragist movement, suffragist. During this time, two main political groups formed, the National Union of Women's Suffrage Societies and the WPSU, Emmeline's, the Women's Social and Political Union. These groups came to be known by two different nicknames, invented by some newspapers who sought to ridicule them. They call them the National Union of Women's Suffrage Society was called the Suffragists, and then the WPSU they would call the Suffragettes. So like, you know, the Rock and the Rockettes, and talk about taking back your power though and turning their bullying tactics into a way to propel the cause.
So fighting for the same rights, but having different ways of approaching it and having different values, core values.
Yeah, so they were fighting for similar rights.
But fighting in different ways and not agreeing with each other's side.
Kind of, yeah. So the suffragists, not the suffragettes, were members of the National Union's Women of Suffrage Societies, or NUS, and were led by Millicent Garrett Fawcett. Millicent and Emmeline going head to head in the ring during the height of their suffrage movement between 1890 and 1990. Oh my God, 1890 and 1919. They campaigned for votes for middle-class, property-owning women and believed in peaceful protest. Millicent
the suffragettes.
The suffragists.
Just right.
Yes, so they thought the votes should only go to middle-class and property-owning women.
Boo! Exactly. That was Emmeline's group, right?
No, that's Millicent's.
Oh, okay.
Emmeline was the suffragettes.
Right.
So Millicent thought that if the organisation was seen to be thoughtful, intelligent and law-abiding, that they would win the respect of Parliament and in time be granted to vote. Emmeline's like, fuck this shit, that's arson attacks, beat the fuck out of it, hunger strike. By 1900, the suffragists' hard work was starting to make waves. Several bills in favour of women's suffrage won support in Parliament, but not enough to pass.
I could never do a hunger strike. I'd be terrible. I can't even do 40-hour famine, man.
I tried that once. I ate so many barley sugars.
Oh, man. I did it once when I was a kid. I had so many barley sugars, I made myself sick.
Barley sugar and water, that's it. So, yeah, they won support, but nothing to be able to pass these acts and bills. Emmeline Pankhurst was a former member of the NUS, the NUWSS, and a supporter of women's suffrage. And after becoming frustrated with the suffragists' approach, she broke off and formed her own society, as we know. The society was more inclusive and welcomed women from all different walks of life. So we like the suffragettes. The two groups used very different tactics, but their message was very much the same. They wore the colours purple, white and green and made banners, badges and sashes with the words "Votes for Women" displayed on them. In 1906, the WSPU relocated their headquarters to London. This transformed the suffrage movement, and for the next 8 years, the suffragettes' fight to win the vote became a highly public and at times confrontational struggle. Both salaried and volunteered office staff at the WSPU organised fundraising events, demonstrations, and produced the weekly newspaper, Votes for Women, which had a circulation of 22,000 by 1909 to raise awareness of the suffrage cause. The WSPU had 90 branches across the United Kingdom, but London remained the chief area of support with 34 local offices. By basing its headquarters in London, it meant the suffragettes could protest where the government was situated. They maintained a constant presence in Whitehall, petitioning Downing Street, heckling MPs, and chaining themselves to government buildings. They were the vegans of the 1900s.
I bet they wore really cute outfits, though.
Yeah, in purple and green and white.
Yeah. Little hats on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. And the fucking parasol.
Yeah.
Votes for women. The suffragettes also targeted major works of art and London landmarks. So on the 4th of March 1914, Mary Richardson entered the National Gallery and inflicted 7 wounds across Velasquez's painting, The Toilet of Venus. Richardson's slashes were deliberately aimed at the torso of the nude Venus. In her defense, she declared, "I have tried to destroy the picture of the most beautiful woman in my mythological history as a protest against the government for destroying Mrs. Pankhurst, who was the most beautiful character in modern history." Quite poetic, right? Women's Sunday in June 1908 was known as the first monster meeting to be held by the WSPU. It brought suffragettes from all over the UK to march in 7 different processions through central London to Hyde Park. The highly choreographed demonstration attracted a crowd of up to 300,000, which would have been massive for back then, right? They were drawn by the spectacle of the delegates dressed in the suffragette purple, white and green colours, otherwise known as the tricolour.
I look great in those colours, by the way.
Yeah, green really suits me too. And I think a splash purple. White, you can keep that to yourself.
No, white and green are my colours.
Oh, white's a very unforgiving colour on me. And carrying over 700 banners. The coronation of George V in 1911, who was Queen Lizzie's II's grandfather, inspired the WSPU to organise its own spectacular coronation pageant, which exceeded the numbers who attended on Women's Sunday. The 4-mile suffragette coronation procession throughout central London culminated in a rally at the Royal Albert Hall and involved over 60,000 delegates dressed in national and historical costume. As the campaign became increasingly militant, over 1,000 suffragettes, including Emmeline and her daughters Christabel, Sylvia and Adela, received prison sentences for their actions. Many suffragettes were sent to Holloway Prison in North London, where they protested against the refusal to treat them as political prisoners by going on hunger strike. In response, the government introduced a policy of force feeding to stop them becoming ill.
They must have been skinny as fuck.
This would involve them being held down and force-fed by prison staff in a particularly unpleasant procedure. When force-feeding failed, and to prevent any suffragettes who went on hunger strike from dying in prison, because that would have fucking been even more uproar, the British government passed a law that was referred to by the suffragettes as the Cat and Mouse Act in 1913. This was a law that allowed hunger striking suffragettes to be released from prison when they were weakened, but only on license. Once their health had been restored or they reappeared in public taking part in militant suffragette actions, they would be rearrested and returned to prison. This idea of the law allowing for prisoners to be let go for only the police to catch them again, just as a cat plays with the mouse, hence the Cat and Mouse Act. In 1913, suffragette Emily Wilding Davison. Yeah, true. Eat that. You want some num nums? You want some num nums?
Here comes the aeroplane.
He's been a good boy. He's been a good girl. In 1913, suffragette Emily Wilding Davison stepped out in front of the King's racehorse during a race at Epsom and died a tragic death after being trampled on.
Oh my God.
Whilst no one knows for sure what Emily was hoping to do exactly, it's believed she was trying to pin a banner of suffragette colours to the King's horse. Bless. Could you imagine her friends at the time? Emily? Emily, what are you doing? Emily, oh, for fuck's sake, Emily. Jesus Christ.
That's really brutal.
I know. She's just walking out there to pin a fucking thing on a racehorse going by. Dead. But it was all for the cause, as Emily's death and the cruel police treatment of the suffragettes sparked public anger and gathered sympathy and support to the women's cause. Briefly touched on this bit during Emmeline's spiel, but the outbreak of World War I changed life as people knew it. In the midst of such huge international conflict, both Emily Pankhurst and Millicent Fawcett temporarily stopped their campaigning and instead encouraged women to join the war effort in the spirit of national unity. World War I also drastically changed women's roles in society. So before the war, a woman's place had been in the home, cooking, washing, cleaning, and raising her children. But when the war began, women were needed to lend a hand.
And
Millions of men had been sent away to fight, so they left vacant jobs that were essential in keeping the country running. Many women went to work for the first time in lots of different industries, even in dangerous arms factories making weapons for the war.
Mm.
The end of militancy also resulted in the release of all the suffragette prisoners. The end of militant efforts also saw the end of suffragette hunger striking in Britain. So by 1918, the effort of the women's suffrage movement finally had a breakthrough. A bill was passed through Parliament, as we said, granting the women right to vote, but they had to be over the age of 30 and own property or be married to someone who owned property. Then you get to vote. And you have to do what your husband says, who he's voting for. Okay?
So whoever he's voting for,
that's
you're
who
voting
you get
for,
to
bitch.
Vote. Despite the restrictions, it was still a big victory, giving 8.1 million women the right to vote. However, there was still a long way to go until all women had the same voting rights as men, who, as we know, could vote from the age of 21, regardless of property. But it would take another 10 years until women received equal suffrage with men in 1928, which sucks, but it's the way it really is, I guess, with stuff like that, isn't it? People see that if they welcome more people into their pool or having the same shit, that they're going to lose something. So you have to kind of just like edge your way in. Baby
steps.
Yeah, edge your way in little by little. So it's a whole little by little step. You've seen Dusty the Musical. Little by little, step by step. No, until you're all the way in. And this is my metaphor analogy, kind of like gaining weight. People who see you every day don't notice it, and then next minute you're the size of a house and people are like, where the fuck did that come from? Surprise, bitches, I'm here. It's like the Voice to Parliament referendum that we're going to have here in Australia soon. No, it's not the final solution, agree, but it's a positive step in getting representation through direction. And we need to at least start making those. If
we can get it passed.
I'll be absolutely fucking disgusted if it doesn't pass. Anyway, let's not think about that.
Maybe we need to start campaigning.
Yeah. Okay, I'm down, especially when it gets announced. There is some divided opinion over the violent tactics the suffragettes used to spread their message. On several occasions, they were lucky that no one was seriously injured or even killed.
Please. They were women that were fucking like told not to speak, basically. Men have done way worse things. True. They were just hunger striking and burning shit and maybe destroying a bit of art.
And they did place a few bombs.
Did they kill anyone with those bombs?
No one was seriously injured or even killed by the bombs.
There you go. They're just little baby girl bombs.
Exactly. Gotcha. They were glitter bombs.
Glitter bombs, yeah. Oh, look how pretty.
Are we being really sexist?
I know, totally.
But just joking.
The moral of the story is they didn't kill anyone. Not like name another bomb that hasn't killed people. Seriously.
Exactly. But there is no doubt that they are remembered as incredibly courageous, forward-thinking women who stood up for what they believed in, often laying their lives on the line in the process. They paved the way for future generations of women. Without them, your grandmothers, your mums, your aunties, friends and sisters, and yes, even you, Skye Collett, might have considerably fewer rights today. Not as few as the gays, but still. Just kidding.
I take my right to vote incredibly seriously.
Me
I think
too.
when I first finished school, like I had registered. So I think there was something at school or something, and they were like, register to vote. And I saw that as like the perfect thing to become an adult. Do you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I'm turning 18. It's a sign of being an adult. Even though my dad dodged voting for years and years and years and refused to do it, wasn't on the electoral roll. When I got the opportunity, I enrolled straight away. And then I got called up for jury duty, and I was on my way overseas as well.
Still never been called for jury duty.
I know. And so because I just booked tickets to go live in England, I had to like send photos of, well, not photos at the time. I think I had to photocopy my tickets and send them off and say that I couldn't do jury duty because I was going overseas and stuff like that. And I was devastated because I was desperate to do it. And I've never been called up since. Like, I literally just want to call them and be like, hey, I'm still here.
Yeah, I know. I want to Google it. Why haven't I been called up?
Yeah.
And then, you know, people who've been called up like 4 times, 5 times. What the fuck?
I'd be like joy if I got that letter. I'd be like, yes, give me a really good case.
Sorry, work.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
But I definitely, when I was a bit younger, it was always a hassle. And certainly sometimes when it's something that I'm not really into, it's a bit of a hassle to have to vote. But I feel like that sense of camaraderie, do you know what I mean? When everyone's rushing out to vote at the same time, fuck, I've got to vote before 8 o'clock tonight. Like fucking shit. And then everyone's posting on Facebook like.
And it's before 6 o'clock.
And then you see those photos of people like on the Gold Coast when it's in summer and they're like going and they've got a towel wrapped around their waist in the voting booths and stuff like that. Yeah, thongs, like surfboard under the arm going to vote.
When we used to hand out for how to vote cards at the polling booth, the fucking abuse you'd get from people as I'd walk through too. Can't believe we're going to do this again. It's like, I know, once every 3 years.
We've done that. We've had a copped abuse when we've campaigned for Labor, and we've had a copped heaps of abuse. And I've done the voting booths before. Like I've done the actual where people come in and vote when I was living on the Central Coast.
Oh, really?
I wasn't working at the time, and you get paid about $350, I think, and then they tax you something like, or maybe it's $450. It's something like that for a whole day's work, but you can't leave until so you can be there until like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, because you've got to do the scrutineering while we count the votes.
Yeah, and then you do all the counting and stuff like that, and then you see all the ones like there's so many voting slips that have like
Donkey
dick and
vote.
balls written on
fucking
them.
None of yous.
Yeah, or like, you know, full abuse, like and the people come in like being really aggressive, but I love it. It's like drama.
Sitting back with your phone. I'm not recording.
This is fun. I only did it one time, but I had the best time. If I was working full time and had to do it, I'd be like blow my brains out.
Yeah.
But because I wasn't working at the time, it was so much fun. I loved every minute of it.
You stupid bitch. So just to wrap up now, while we were jokey about some of the stuff, that's our brand, and we're not saying that the fight for women's rights is over. Around the world, including the UK and Australia, men are still likely to be paid more than a woman for doing exactly the same job. And there are many countries today where women still lack basic rights that we take for granted.
Basic human rights.
You don't have to throw a petrol bomb at a building. Just show your support through solidarity and don't tear down people who are trying to make change for the better in making sure that everyone has the same rights as everyone else. And just chill out. Have a fucking barbecue, please.
Exactly. Chill out, have a fucking barbecue, and keep an open mind, people. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Think about what it's like to walk a mile in someone else's shoes sometimes.
Well, it's not just yours. We can all live together harmoniously.
Exactly.
Okay. So before I hand you over to Skye, I think we just need one quick more verse from "We're clearly soldiers in petticoats and dauntless crusaders for women's votes. Though we adore men individually, we agree that as a group they're rather stupid." So true too, isn't it? When men get together, they can be the fucking so stupid.
Not my man.
Not your man. Individually. Though we adore men individually.
Okay, let me.
All right. Now, I'm really excited to hear about this because I have not heard of this group. What was it? The Jane Activisms or?
The Jane Collective.
The Jane Collective.
Have
it
you
sounds,
not?
no. And it
Are we
sounds
starting?
like
Are we recording?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the bit. Okay, sorry. Okay.
It sounds like something from fucking a sci-fi movie or a TV show. We are the Jane Collective.
First of all, I actually love the name. I think the name's amazing. I didn't actually know until I started researching it that that's actually what they're called. But surely you've never heard of any pop culture references.
Maybe that's why it sounds cool. Jane Collective, but no, it's not something that's standing out in my head.
Well, I'm going to talk about two pop culture references, but it's never been referred to that I have heard of as the Jane Collective in either of these pop culture references.
Oh, okay,
but there's a 2022 movie starring Elizabeth. There's a 2022 movie starring Elizabeth Banks and Sigourney Weaver called Call Jane. Have you not seen that around?
No.
So Elizabeth Banks plays a suburban housewife in the 60s dealing with a life-threatening pregnancy that leads her to joining a group called the Jane Collective. So I'm going to go into the background, but basically just to give a bit of if you've heard of the movie Called Jane, you know, if she has this baby, it's going to endanger her and the life of the baby, but the doctors refuse to let her have an abortion, which was a common theme. You know, it's look, if you ever, I remember doing
still is a fucking common theme in America at the moment.
Look, and just to preface it, because we've just jumped into it, we're talking about, you know, women's reproductive rights and abortion in the 60s and 70s. But I remember doing debates on it when I was in high school. And part of the position of people who are against abortion was that the likelihood of you having a pregnancy that's life-threatening is in like a 1% or some, and these are not the exact figures, by the way, but I remember researching it at the time, and the position was, well, look, why should you kill human life just for this small percentage of women who may, you know, be endangered from having pregnancies, because the majority of pregnancies are healthy, which is actual bullshit.
Totally. Do you know how many women died before medicine evolved to be able to save women's life? Yeah.
But that's what the movie's about. So it's in the 60s and she has a life-threatening pregnancy and she ends up being, you know, pushed towards the Jane Collective, and the movie's about it. There's heaps of stars in it. There's also an episode in Cold Case dedicated to this activist group. It's an episode where Tara from Buffy gets shot in the head with her boyfriend.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, so they're ferrying women into this building and stuff like that, and her and her boyfriend are helping out. And then they it's unrelated why they get shot and what the actual, but that the background of the episode is based on them being, you know, activists.
I love that. And I just had a quick Google of Call Jane to see if I'd noticed the cover, and I haven't, but it also stars Kate Mara, who plays Lana in it.
Yes.
Who she was in American Horror Story, and also in the first episode of Cold Case.
Yes, she was. Yeah. Yes. Tyler loves Kate Mara. Yeah.
Separation, please.
Anyway, so for those listeners who have never heard the reference before, the Jane Collective reference before, it's also known as the Abortion Counseling Service of Women's Liberation. It was a secret underground feminist organization in the United States during the 1960s and 70s. The group was based in Chicago and played a crucial role in providing safe and illegal abortions to women before the landmark Supreme Court decision of Roe versus Wade in 1973, which legalized abortion in the United States, in some states, mind you.
And I think it did.
Now it's been revoked.
It's been overturned.
Yes.
It's fucking ridiculous.
So I'm not going to talk about the current situation. I'm just going to talk about the historical stuff. So I haven't heavily researched. I know that it's been overturned, and I know, you know, once again, women's reproductive freedoms and rights are in question, and it's really, really awful. And certainly we've had, you know, activist marches in Australia to, you know,
demonstrate
protest.
Our opposition.
Yeah. Exactly. But I'm not really going to touch on that too much. Okay, don't ask me too many questions about it.
Oh, no, I won't.
That's my summary of it. But in the years leading up to Roe versus Wade, abortion was illegal in most states, and obtaining a safe abortion was extremely difficult and dangerous. Many women face life-threatening risks from back alley procedures performed by unqualified individuals or resorted to self-induced abortions. Dirty Dancing.
Yes, and also If These Walls Could Talk.
Yes.
That telly movie, that was excellent.
So the Jane Collective was founded in 1969 by women who were passionate about women's reproductive rights and sought to offer safe abortion services in a supportive and caring environment. So the other thing I think people need to remember about this, it's not just about the right to do what you know, the freedom of your own body. It's also about the stress, the angst, and everything that you can put yourself through when you're unmarried or ill, or just know that you're not ready to have a child. Like, you know,
exactly. And
think of all those people in foster cares, all those children in foster cares, and put up for adoption in horrible situations. Like, it's not just about saying, I don't want this baby.
And people look at abortion as people using it as a form of birth control, which it isn't.
Because
and if it is, it's very, very, even a small,
unlikely.
A smidge of a percent.
Yes.
The people are doing it just because, fucking blah, blah.
And you're always going to have people who do that in any situation. You're always going to have people who do the wrong thing. It's, you know, it's still about, let's not bring, for me, it's always been about, let's not bring unwanted babies into the world. You know, there's enough of unwanted babies out there. Let's not bring any more in. If you don't want to have a baby, that's your choice. It's your body. You have to go through it. You have to look after that baby for 20 odd years. Well, really the rest of their life. And, you know, if you can't support them.
Yeah. And let's just say old white men should not be the ones making these fucking decisions anyway.
Exactly. Or the church or the government.
Yeah, exactly.
So the members of the group were predominantly feminists who received training in providing abortion procedures and counselling services. This is my summary, but I'll go into it in a bit more detail. They also networked with sympathetic doctors who helped them access medical equipment and provided guidance on safe abortion techniques. The group operated in secret to avoid legal repercussions and sought to maintain strict anonymity for both the women seeking their services and the members themselves. They used various code names and maintained a low profile to protect their identities. It is estimated that the Jane Collective helped thousands of women by providing them with safe abortions during its existence. After the legalization of abortion in the United States, following the Roe v. Wade decision, the group disbanded and some of its members continued their activism in other women's rights and reproductive justice organizations. The Jane Collective's work highlighted the necessity of safe and legal access to abortion and the importance of grassroots activism in advancing women's reproductive rights. Their legacy continues to inspire advocates for reproductive justice and safe access to abortion services today. So let's go back to the roots. By the mid-1900s, abortion was illegal in almost every US state. In the state of Illinois, at the time the Jane Collective formed, abortion was considered felony homicide.
Jesus Christ.
However, in the 1960s, it was estimated that a third of US women who wanted no more children would have at least one unintended pregnancy by the end of their childbearing years. So you think of the timing as well, like how much money it costs to bring up a child, if you've got a whole bunch of other children, religious views about contraception and all that stuff. It was quite common for people to not want to have a pregnancy for various reasons, not just because they were young and silly and, you know, had an accident, like so many different reasons, including health.
Yeah.
In the 1950s and 1960s, it was estimated that between 200,000 and 1 million illegal abortions occurred annually.
Jesus.
It's a huge gap between those numbers. So, you know, again, this is a reputable source that I got this information from, but I'm like 200,000 to 1 million. That's a big amount.
That is a huge gap, yeah. But maybe there's like, what'd you say of unreported ones?
Estimated.
They
believe annually occurred.
Yeah.
So women sometimes died as a result of these procedures, accounting for 17% of all deaths attributed to childbirth and pregnancy in 1965.
Jesus.
Low-income women had relatively high rates of obtaining illegal abortions, with the majority attempting self-induced abortions, with very, very few involving actual physicians.
God. And they would have just mutilated themselves and put themselves at incredible health risk.
Yeah, the old knitting needle, you know.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things.
Swish it around.
But I could understand being a woman in that situation, you know, having churchy parents or having a boyfriend that's taken off. And
that's it. That's all the societal pressures as well as unwed mothers. And look what happened to a lot of those babies.
And making an income in the 50s and the 60s as a woman whose family had ostracized her because she was pregnant and the guy's taken off. Like, what do you do? How do you feed yourself? How do you feed a child?
Yeah.
So abortion remained illegal in each state until Colorado was the first to decriminalize abortion in some circumstances in 1967. And again, I haven't fully researched the Australian history on this, but I remember we had it decriminalized in Queensland for back years and years ago, but it was illegal in other states. And I can't remember exactly what states it was, but it was decriminalized. So I guess that means that, you know, doctors could do it or people could do it. But it wasn't promoted. It wasn't like something that was openly offered.
Yeah.
In 1970, 4 states, Washington, New York, Hawaii, and Alaska, reappealed laws against abortion, making it generally legal before the age of viability. So before the medical term of the baby becoming, well, the fetus becoming an actual living, breathing sort of baby.
Yeah, there have to be some restrictions around it, yeah.
Of course. Traveling to obtain legal abortions became easier for the affluent, so the rich people, as they no longer had to travel to destinations such as the United Kingdom. So before that, they could only go to the UK.
Jesus.
If they had the money to get there and the money to pay for the procedure. For those who could manage to gain access to a legal abortion, results were mixed. Some women experienced hemorrhaging or sepsis. Others paid for abortions only to still be pregnant afterwards from a botched procedure. In 1965, University of Chicago student Heather Booth learned that her friend's sister had an unwanted pregnancy that left her distraught and nearly suicidal. Booth had previously not given much thought to abortion access. Her exposure to the experience of an unwanted pregnancy led her to consider abortion restrictions as unjust laws, saying, "In the face of an unjust law, you need to take action to challenge it." To seek assistance for her friend's sister, Booth contacted the Medical Committee for Human Rights, who connected her with civil rights leader and surgeon T.R.M. Howard. Howard worked at the Friendship Medical Center in Chicago, and Booth sent her friend to his facility. Word spread that Booth was able to help women obtain safe abortions, and soon she began receiving calls from other women. Operating under the pseudonym Jane, Booth began taking such phone calls at her college dormitory, referring more clients to Howard, who performed the abortions for $500. A lot of cash in those days.
I was going to say, how much is that the equivalent of now? It's a lot of cash these days, yeah.
Yeah. Booth later switched to an abortion care provider, alternatively referred to as Mick or Nick. Booth continued to refer patients for abortions, averaging one per week, mostly for low-income women and women of color. This continued until 1968, when she was out of college, married, pregnant, and employed full-time. With less time to devote to connecting women with abortion providers, she recruited and trained 10 other women to help her. She transferred her leadership role to Ruth Sergel and Jody Parsons. The organization, founded in Hyde Park, Chicago, adopted the name Abortion Counseling Service of Women's Liberation, proclaiming that they were for every woman having exactly as many children as she wants, when she wants, if she wants.
I love that.
It gives me shivers, that statement. I'm just like, it shouldn't be something that we fight against. But anyway.
Yeah.
They decided that the name was wordy, though. Women who called should just ask for Jane, which they considered the every woman name.
Wow.
The Abortion Counseling Service of Women's Liberation was a work group of the Chicago Women's Liberation Union. One member. It's crazy the themes that we're going with. Like you started, we didn't compare these like choices tonight.
Unions and
it always happens,
political
doesn't it?
Groups, yeah.
We end up being on the same page. One member of the Jane Collective was known as Jenny. She was motivated to help provide abortion access by her past struggles to obtain a safe abortion. Jenny discovered that she was pregnant shortly after she was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oh, bless.
She sought an abortion due to concerns about the effects of her radiation treatment on the fetus, but was denied by the hospital board.
Fucking hell, because they know so much.
I know, right? Oh, yeah, look, it might hurt the fetus, but, you can't have an abortion.
Yeah.
Or it might hurt you, or, go through the trauma of, being sick and being treated through radiation and then also losing a child.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
After informing two psychiatrists that she intended to kill herself if not allowed an abortion, she was allowed her request eventually. The services of the Jane Collective spread through word of mouth. The organization also reached women through posting signs in the city that read, "Pregnant? Don't want to be? Call Jane," listing the phone number. They placed ads in underground newspapers saying, "Pregnant? Worried? Call Jane." The number directed the caller to an answering machine where they were instructed to leave their name, phone number, and date of their last period. The woman would then be contacted by a member of the collective who would schedule a meeting to discuss the procedure. The Jane Collective had patients referred to them by medical professionals, which annoyed them, as the doctors were almost unwilling to provide any assistance. Now, this bit, I think they were too scared to get involved because of the repercussions legally and I guess to their medical license. But at least these ones were referring them to a service that would help. Do you know what I mean? Like
they actually were understanding. Yeah.
I could get being like the women going, "Fuck you, just do it, doctors." Do you know what I mean? Like, it's wrong. Like, that's why you're referring them to us. But at least they were doing that as opposed to saying you've got no options, have the baby.
Yeah. Or reporting them or anything like that.
A little bit more progressive than lots of people who would say, "You've got no hope. Go
you
marry this guy."
Ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, you should be ashamed of yourself. If the woman decided to proceed with the abortion, she was given the address of the front, The front was one of the many apartments that the collective rented out throughout the city. Before the abortion, the patient and a member of Jane would meet at the front, where the patient would then be driven to a second location to undergo the abortion.
Christ. Could you imagine the anxiety of going through all of this? It's such a fucking like organized crime syndicate type thing, really, isn't it?
And how many times do you reckon the guy went with them? How many times do you reckon it was a woman on her own going to do this with complete strangers, then leaving her name and her details on a message, then them calling her, then meeting somewhere, and then them driving her somewhere else, and she doesn't know these people. Like, imagine the fear.
Terrified. Yeah.
It just goes to show just how desperate these people were.
Yeah, exactly. And they were probably, and a lot of the time back then too, and I don't want to generalize, but you're thinking, especially in all walks, it would have been the woman's fault she got pregnant. The man would have blamed her and fucking, we can't have another fucking child, Susie. You know what I mean? And she would have had that pressure as well.
Yeah, but there was no sex education either, because that's not allowed. That's illegal at this time. Like, they didn't teach you about condoms or going on the pill. If you could get access to the pill, if you knew enough about what was happening, like, these are young girls a lot of the time as well who are just like, oh, this guy loves me.
Yeah. We're going to be together forever.
He wants to do stuff to me. Okay, yeah. I'm living in the moment. This feels nice. And the next minute,
you're on your ass.
So Jenny, one of the members that I mentioned before, eventually began demanding to be in the room with the patient. So she was the one who had Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yeah.
She began demanding to be in the room with the patients while the procedure was performed to ensure that the women were treated well.
Good.
Jenny was highly critical of how her health was managed by men when she was pregnant with cancer, saying, through the whole experience, there wasn't one woman involved. It was men, the doctors, the hospital board, controlling my reproductive rights and condemning me to death.
And having no idea having an idea, but not having any full understanding of what is.
And imagine being in that situation and not having a lady there to just like, sort of hold your hand and be like, it's going to be okay, love. You'll be okay. And men just coming in going bang, bang, bang. Yeah. This.
So fucking procedural.
And not that all men are like that. Certainly,
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Though.
Lots of people who are sympathetic, but still, it would be being in hospital at any time is awful.
Just
especially when you're sick.
Adding to an already terrifying experience.
So Jenny learned about providing abortions by watching Nick, the guy who replaced that original activist doctor, who eventually trained her as his nurse. Abortions remained cost prohibitive for their clients, who were generally low income. Even after guaranteeing some abortion providers 10 clients per week, the per abortion cost remained $500. Members of the collective used fundraising to help cover costs of the procedures for those who couldn't afford it, which would be a lot of them.
Yeah.
In 1971, however, the collective discovered that Nick was not actually a doctor as he claimed. This caused emotional duress for some of the members of the collective, who insisted that using an abortion provider with fake credentials made them just like the back alleys, and that they should shutter the organization. So they had this dude basically who said he was a doctor and was making $500 a pop off them. Each person who didn't have a medical degree or qualification in any way.
Oh, God.
He was, however, doing it properly. And he wasn't, doing the backdoor stuff, backyard abortions that happen. He was performing up to 20 abortions a day with skill, however, and other members realized if he can do it, then we can do it too. So Jenny learned to perform the procedure, and then she was able to teach other members. It remained a limited skill, however, with only about 4 members trained to perform surgical abortions. So members then took over performing the abortions, which enabled them to drop the price from $500 to $600 to $100.
Wow.
So he was in it for the money.
100%. Yeah.
He's still providing a service that, could end up really, really badly for other women in other situations. I'm sure there was heaps of people out there saying, I'm a doctor, I can give me $500 and I'll do this for you.
Situation for his fucking dollar. Yeah.
So once Jenny stepped in and learned how to do it, she was able to actually make it really cost effective. But still $100 back in those days is still a lot of fucking cash. But
still, 1/5 of the price.
However, they accepted whatever amount a client was able to pay. The Jane Collective learned how to perform pap smears and found a laboratory to read the results for $4.
Oh, wow.
The drop in prices resulted in more low-income clients as well as more Black clients. One Black woman, Lois, criticized the group when she came to them for an abortion for their lack of diversity. As they were nearly all white and middle class, she stated, "You guys are the white angels that are going to save everybody, and where are the Black women at?" Lois decided then to join the collective to help counsel its Black patients. Seeking abortion could be especially difficult for them, as lots of nationalists decreed that abortion was an act of Black genocide.
Lois, love that.
I know. So even harder for those.
Yeah, that's when you said that, I was just like, then the female people of color who were going in and getting it surrounded by all these white men would have felt even fucking worse.
Yeah. Imagine how they were treated back in those days. And that's basically what that movie is called, Jane. And Tyler and I see it come up all the time, and we've seen the trailer and we're both desperate to watch it, and it's on our list. We just haven't gotten around to it because Tyler loves Elizabeth Banks. But yeah, so that's pretty much what happened. She was in a different situation, but she had to have a medical one because of her health, and she was told by the hospital, no way.
Yeah.
The woman learned several abortion methods, such as the cannula method for early stage abortions and the supercoil method used in later stage abortions, which caused the women to miscarriage. But the most widely used was the DNC, dilation and curette method. In 1972, one of the Jane Collective apartments was raided by the police, and 7 of its members were arrested. Each was charged with 11 counts of abortion and conspiracy. Oh, God, I've lost my notes. And conspiracy to commit abortion, carrying a maximum prison sentence of 110 years. 110 years.
Fucking hell.
You don't get that for murder, mate.
Yeah, I know. And I was just thinking what some of the shitty sentences that we see get passed around to men who fucking attempt to murder or actually do murder.
I know, right?
But it's aggravated manslaughter or some shit. Jesus Christ.
Their attorney was able to delay court proceedings in anticipation of the Supreme Court's decision on Roe versus Wade. As the attorney hoped, the court's decision in Roe in 1973 struck down many abortion restrictions in the US, and the charges against the Jane Collective members were dropped. Yay. As women now had access to legal abortion, the collective disbanded shortly afterwards. While their abortions sometimes resulted in complications, none of their clients were known to die from their abortions.
Oh, girls. And you know, I'm sure there was probably some. And I mean, like, they've obviously achieved what they wanted to achieve, the organization, what they'd set out to do. But I'm sure there would have been some sadness when they got disbanded as well.
Oh, yeah, totally. But it was all about women's rights. Do you know what I mean? They just move on to something else.
Yeah.
It's never going to really, I think there's always going to be something that, well, you still have to campaign for abortion now. Like, yeah, it's illegal again.
I know. That's what happens when you vote Trump. People.
Exactly. It's but I think it's just really inspiring. Like, I just love these stories of activism where, you know, people band together.
It's like the Harvey Milk thing as well. When they that's what I was saying, when they get in the, because you watch the movie afterwards, you know, when they get into the print shop and they're all, phones are ringing everywhere and people are running in with flyers and shit like that. It's just like, oh,
what a great film that was. I'm so glad you made me watch it. It was such a good movie, and Tyler loved it too. He thought it was really slow in the beginning, like he could really get into it, and there was a few times, because it's a pretty long movie. It goes for about 2.5 hours. And there was a bit in the beginning, like the first probably 45 minutes, I was like, we can turn it off if you want and I'll watch it by myself later on. And he was like, no, just keep going. And then once we got into, like, in the middle, he was fully into it. He was like, I have to see how this.
Do they bring up the Twinkie defense?
In the credits at the end where they do like the writing.
Right. Yeah, that's where the Twinkie defense came in.
Pretty much ends with him being shot.
Right.
And that's, yeah. And then it just tells you what happens after it, like all the different things, you know, and about how the boyfriend, who was played by, what's his name? James Franco, who he ditches for that other guy who ends up killing himself. He ends up continuing on with the activism. They didn't mention the nephew, though. It didn't come up in the credits. You talked about the nephew going on to be a huge activist as well, because he was inspired, and he was also gay because of his uncle. They didn't talk about
gay because of his uncle.
I mean,
God, you're just like those other people, Skye.
I meant he was also gay because of his uncle. He was an activist inspired by his uncle. They didn't touch on that. But yeah.
Well, and yeah, it's true what you said, like with our themes that we've both actually picked women activist groups.
I know, right? Totally. Crazy.
Well, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our inspiring stories of people who had the courage to change the things they couldn't accept and made a difference in the world that we live in today.
Join us next week for our final episode of season 6. Sad face. What's the Haps? The episode where we cover the interests that piqued our interest in the last 4 weeks. Share, like, and subscribe, our dear listeners, on all the platforms, please. Just search for @StupidBSayWhat.
Stupid bitch.
And remember, as always, if you're whining, which Sean Bino isn't, you're winning, but Skye is.
Well, I am whining in a different way. I'm pining.
Good night, stupid bitches.
Good night.
Yeah, that stupid bitch. He's a stupid bitch. What a stupid bitch. That stupid bitch.